we have a whole bunch of stories to get to, basically the laptop from hell and other stories, and this is your guide to the 2023 congressional investigations. Now, Kevin McCarthy's troops plan on doing a probe into Hunter Biden, the DHS, the FBI, and more. But the real point is to get on TV and act stupid. With control of Congress split between Senate Democrats and House Republicans, the near total legislative gridlock is almost certain to halt movement on the keystone issues of both parties. Indeed, we have a whole bunch of battles over bills that will likely be just the background to a tide of aggressive investigations that are going to be led by House Republicans into the Justice Department and key figures into Joe Biden's administration. Now, exactly what the political fallout of these investigations will be and who will benefit most from it are key questions, as high-profile hearings will command media attention ahead of the 2024 election. Now, the Biden administration has been gearing up for the GOP's promised investigations at least since last May, when presumed GOP targets like the Department of Homeland Security had begun a process that might be described as legal waterproofing. Now, after recruiting a slate of veteran white-collar lawyers and former political advisors, the Biden officials built the administration's response strategy last summer in a series of meetings. Democrats will meet this investigative onslaught with essentially the same playbook that Republicans had used to defend Donald Trump and his coterie, ironically enough, along with the battery of legal defenses that are meant to guard against overly broad demands for Justice Department intelligence. Democrats know firsthand how hard it is to turn investigative findings into a pair of handcuffs. Now, with that experience being said, and some may argue, and it may offer Democrats the advantage in landing in a balance of public favor. The recent pundit chatter suggests Democrats are hoping that the GOP investigative overreach will be a publicity boon. They're betting that the voters will grow impatient while watching a fractured GOP with the razor-thin House Majority flounder to fulfill any of its legislative stump promises. Now, some White House aides and allies have suggested that the far-right flavor of the House Investigative Committee is nothing more than a political gift. It seems basically at least as likely that House Republicans can score some political points wielding the gavel than Democrats can in defending themselves from it. The Biden administration is already on the back foot, seeking to fend off what it views as unnecessary requests for overly sensitive information, but the flood of congressional requests and subpoenas that are certain to follow. Now, the GOP committee chair hopes to yank the leashes of executive branch officials before the cameras, delighting the most extreme members of their base with the spectacle of Democratic humiliation. The government science and health officials will likely be compelled to appear on Capitol Hill to address a range of unsubstantiated conspiracy theories and COVID and other hot topics. Now, the congressional investigations, replete with camera-savvy grandstanding antics, are the hallmark of a divided government, as well as a time-tested axe for chipping away at presidential approval ratings. Republicans are betting their stagecraft will outweigh the fact that their investigations will almost certainly have no legal effect. Now, the Republicans' investigative wish list is sprawling, but it may grow narrow as their committees stretch themselves thin. Now, here's a breakdown of the House's new investigative powers and committees, along with the list of current and proposed investigations, and this is where the GOP hopes to flex its authority for the cameras. New rules. What's different in the GOP House? Passage of the new House rules for the 118th Congress in a 2020 to 213 vote, and marked Speaker Kevin McCarthy's first legislative victory, and the rules are expected to encourage protracted and performative committee hearings, increasing the chances of partisan budget standoffs in both chambers. They increase House committees' investigative authority at the expense of a minority party member and the integrity of ongoing criminal cases, and they expand the bill markup privileges, allowing members to target individual political opponents and federal programs. No rules laid out in the 55-page document grant the chamber greater control over spending and tax bills, while giving the House GOP a new potential cudgel against the agencies and programs that they plan on investigating. The most high-profile rule change dramatically weakens the speakership by allowing any single member to call a motion to vacate the chair. The previously 5 members were required, not anymore. The long-standing Jeff Hart rule was struck down, which could force a direct vote on lifting the debt ceiling, and it sets the stage for a potential 2011 SK standoff with Senate Democrats. Brinkmanship chances may increase the most thanks to new rules aimed at slowing down budget approval for bills that are normally hand-waved through like those used to keep Social Security functioning. Now, bills reauthorizing such mandatory spending increases are blocked in the new rules, as is any spending bill that would lay out more than $2.5 billion within a 4-year time. Now, however, spending cuts can now be bundled together and voted on as in a package deal. Now, short-term spending items in a budget must be voted on individually before their funding is increased. Income tax increases now require three-fifths of the vote to pass the House, and any bill that has a big impact on the economy has to include an inflation impact estimate. Now, one bipartisan good government rule requires bills to be posted at least 72 hours before the chamber decides to take a vote on them. Now, while the House expanded committee investigative privilege, any committee seeking to enforce subpoenas or compel criminal investigations will still face Democratic pushback in the Senate and White House. Now, the most prominent threat to the executive branch and Biden administration comes with the revival of the Holman Rule, which allows Congress to vote on cutting specific employer salaries or positions within a federal agency. Another rule gives more authority to the already powerful House Oversight and Accountability Committee. Now, all committees tasked with overseeing a federal program's budget will now be required to provide the Oversight Committee with a formidable stack of paperwork on its programs, and the threshold for recommending a program's termination has been lowered. The House committees, especially select committees, already have the authority to exercise a range of investigative powers, but newly reintroduced rules tighten the majority party's grip on the committee, and it restricts the minority party involvement. It's entirely possible that Republicans will live to regret these rules 2 years later, being reinforced by the threat of a potentially disastrous government shutdown or a possible default on government debt. This is what House committees' investigative powers will look like now. And how will the House rules impact investigations? Now, getting it put on record, unlike congressional subpoena powers, House rules on committee interview and information requests are largely unchanged in 2023. Before it issues a subpoena, a House committee can try two less aggressive routes to gather any evidence, if they can find any. Any member can issue a request for any member can issue a request for information to an individual whose response is voluntary. Now, then a House committee can request an interview, and with response again voluntary, although perceived political interest often compels witnesses to comply. The interviews are less formal than a full deposition, and they're usually held in private, and committees can still allow staff to lead witness interviews either remotely or in person. There's no more of a 7-member rule. Now, previously, any 7 members of the Oversight Committee, regardless of any party that you're associated with, could issue a subpoena to compel witness depositions or other evidence. Now, the committee's chair must be included among those 7 members, and the current Congress this obviously restrains any power that the Democrats have. Now, staff deposition powers limits the attendance. Republicans will keep a previous Democratic rule that allowed the Republicans will keep a previous Democratic rule that allowed congressional staff to take depositions without a committee member present. The rule also now limits powers who can attend depositions to members, and committee staffers, an official reporter, the witness, and no more than 2 attorneys. Now, we also have high-profile hearings. Now, more in-person testimony is expected during congressional hearings, as a new rule restricts the circumstances under which committee chairs can allow witnesses to testify remotely. This rule seems to apply only to non-governmental witnesses. The GOP has also kept a Democratic rule that allows the committee to overrule objections made by a witness lawyer and compel a witness to answer or be charged with contempt. Committee members can still appeal this move. We also have the executive branch referral. Now, Congress can still refer its investigatory findings to the executive branch for criminal prosecution through the Justice Department, but the executive branch still has the power to decide whether to prosecute or not. Now, we already know what happens if you ignore a congressional subpoena. If a person fails to comply with the congressional subpoena, they could face charges of contempt, although the consequences are really serious, and those come in 3 varieties. Inherent contempt. If a person ignores a subpoena from a House committee, the House can pass a resolution holding that person in contempt of court and then conduct a full trial along with a debate. If the person is found guilty, Congress can impose its own punishment, including having the chamber's sergeant at arms find the person and arrest him. We also have civil contempt. Formerly known as a civil enforcement, this option allows the House to enforce a subpoena by either having the House General Counsel file a suit in federal court or asking the federal judge to order the witness to comply. And then you also have criminal contempt. Now, failure to comply with the subpoena is a misdemeanor that can result in imprisonment or fines, and although such outcomes are very rare, the House can approve a contempt citation, and they refer it to the Attorney General for possible prosecution. And while the DOJ currently currently being overloaded with hundreds of January 6 Klan cases and the discovery of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, the odds don't favor the additional uses of resources for congressional investigations. Now, notably, criminal contempt charges like those on which former White House advisor Steve Bannon was convicted takes a notoriously long time to yield any results. Now, what are the House's investigative committees? There are 8 key committees to watch out for so far. Among those, the 3 new investigative bodies worth keeping an eye on are the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, and the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. But both shakeups and 5 other standing committees foreshadow more House roles ahead. Like with the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Jim Jordan has already pledged that his committee will investigate the Justice Department as he dives into a slate of Biden administration affairs. His requests to the DOJ have already begun, with the first indication of the department's response coming late last week. Now, the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, Jim Jordan will also chair this new and highly publicized panel, which has been authorized to investigate the investigators, especially the ongoing criminal probes of Donald Trump and his inner circle. Now, critically, the subcommittee is allowed to receive potentially sensitive information from the House Intelligence Committee, and whose members have special security clearances, and its members do not have to serve on the actual Judiciary Committee. Now, federal agencies are expected to push back on information requests made by the panel, and the committee member, Representative Byron Donalds, has also said that he wants the committee to investigate the White House's interaction with Twitter. Now, with the Oversight and Accountability Committee, the chairman, James Comer, who's from Kentucky, will be able to issue subpoenas unilaterally in his role over his powerful committee. The first hint of its new aggressive posture came with the name change. It was previously known as the Oversight and Reform Committee. Now, Comer has repeatedly promised to go after the Biden administration and its federal agencies in what he calls an all-star lineup. And indeed, the committee's GOP members include such maggot, boldface names boldface names as Arizona Representative Andy Biggs, Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry. Now, with the Select Committee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, and this is being chaired by Brad Wenstrup of Ohio, the new panel is likely to dive into pandemic relief fund fraud, but may also reinvestigate the origins of COVID-19 and how it started, and why that's important to Congress at this late of a date is not fucking clear. But although the Select Committee is technically under the Oversight and Accountability Committee, the Speaker chooses its membership as with the Government Weaponization Panel. Members will be able to ask questions for more than the usual 5 minutes, and staff will be able to question witnesses in hearings, but its final report is due by January 2nd of 2025, which is the last day of this Congress that Biden will be at. Now, the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party, this is being chaired by Wisconsin Representative Mike Gallagher. The new panel, with an unwieldy out-of-the-past name, was created in the rules package and in its own separate resolution. Gallagher is noted for his bipartisan efforts to establish the committee in the previous Congress under the then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who will herself sit on this new committee along with Democratic Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts and the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York. McGovern's position as chair of the Congressional Executive Commission on China is expected to add sobriety to the committee's approach. Now, with the Foreign Affairs Committee, chairing this already powerful committee, Representative Michael McCall of Texas will have the authority to oversee the Department of State and any investigations from any other prior committees, and it also involves the foreign policy, and that could include having influence over the Select Committee on China. Representative Scott Perry, the Freedom Caucus chair, also sits on this committee. Homeland Security. The Freedom Caucus member Mark Green from Tennessee is likely to step into a high-profile role as he takes on the chairman of this committee. The migration issues at the southern border are prompting a suit of early bills in the House. Now the far-right members want to depose Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas, with resolutions demanding his impeachment already filed in the House. Now, with Ethics Committee, Representative Michael Guest, who's a Republican from Mississippi, will chair this committee. While he's not new, The recent rule changes ordered the Ethics Committee to begin taking complaints directly from the public. Now, the move may offer lawmakers a potential end run around the Office of Congressional Ethics, which vets and refers the ethics complaints to the Ethics Committee. As the OCE faces calls to investigate Congress members over the January 6th Klan attack on the Capitol, its 8-member board has been largely gutted by a new rule imposing term limit caps that would immediately force out 3 Democrats and another new rule requiring 4 OCE board members to approve this new appointee. Now, the current House GOP investigations, the GOP is expected to investigate a host of topics in short order. Biden's border policies, which he's just copying the same as Trump had. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, which there was nothing wrong with that. The origins of COVID-19, which started under Trump, so I don't know why they're investigating Biden on that. Cryptocurrency scams and diversity recruiting efforts in the military. Now, currently, 3 investigations have commenced in earnest, with chairman publicly discussing early plans and any collection of evidence that they're trying to find, which they're not going to find much. The Justice Department and the FBI. Now, Jordan has previously signaled that the government weaponization panel plans to go after the FBI and DOJ in what Democrats believe will be an effort to see what cards the agencies hold in their own criminal investigations into Trump. Now, Jordan released a roadmap of the committee's agenda spanning more than 1,000 pages, but he said in recent days that the committee will first investigate what he believes was the FBI's attempt to target parents who criticized the school board members. Also, Hunter Biden, which I don't understand why they're investigating him, because he's not president, he's not holding any political office, so I don't care about him. Now, with Hunter Biden, Comer's Oversight and Accountability Committee will take on a whole new range of topics centered on Hunter Biden, which Comer basically told CNN it would start immediately. Comer said that there are no plans right now to subpoena the president himself, but the committee would bring in witnesses for interviews and request bank records from the president's long-troubled son. Basically, this has been talked about before, and Hunter Biden, with him getting bank stuff like that, they already determined that wasn't illegal. Now, Hunter Biden is facing a federal investigation over tax violations, but he's never been charged with a crime. Now, Comer's panel will also will investigate any links between the president and his son, and is clearly eager to pursue the rumors that Joe Biden somehow profited from or meddled in his son's overseas business, which they were determined he has not. Now, Biden's classified documents. Now, the difference between this is that, yes, Biden did have classified documents, and so did Trump. The only difference is that Biden cooperated, Trump did not. Now, Biden's classified documents on January 13th, Justice Committee Chair Jim Jordan announced that the panel would investigate Joe Biden's handling of classified documents, sending a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland requesting files related to the DOJ's findings on the president. Now, the committee also asked for documents related to Garland's appointment of a special counsel, a special counsel guy named Richard Hur. Now, under the authority of the Oversight and Accountability Committee, Comer sent his own request to the DOJ, asking for more details on what the documents contain. Obviously, nothing as bad as Trump's. Basically, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening.